Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and hi if you're new here, I'm Jade and it's time for August wrap up. I feel I have had a really strong month actually, so I'm super excited to record this one because I feel like I have a lot of good books, a lot of good recommendations. So yeah, without further ado, so I don't keep talking, let's just get into it. So, the first book that I read this month was Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. So, just in case you don't know, this is from the Throne of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas, and I have been slowly working my way through it, and I love it. I have rated several books 5 stars in the series, but I might have to say that this might just peak as my favorite, just because I feel like we're so into the story. There's some really good things happening. I'm starting to understand different characters, see where we are. There's been some twists. However, because obviously this is part of a series, I can't talk about it too much. But I will say, if you like your fantasy romancy and you haven't tried the Throne of Glass series yet, I know a lot of people that I know have just read ACOTAR and not read Throne of Glass. I would definitely recommend it. I know some people don't seem to like one or the other, but I love both. So I'm gonna say go read this one if you like your fantasy romancy, because to me, this is very gripping. I like it. So the second book I read in August, it was actually an ARC, and it was digital, so I'll display the cover. But I really enjoyed this one actually. So it's called Marjorie and Me by Melissa Grace. And yeah, I was kindly gifted the ARC, and it was one of those types of ARCs where they like send it a couple of weeks before release and expect you to read and review it in that time frame, and like do it before the release, if that makes sense. So you kind of have like almost a deadline on it and a little bit of a time frame to read it in. So obviously it's a very specific window that I was reading it in. So as of now, the book is already out. So even though I'm talking about it as an ARC and from an ARC copy's perspective, the official one is out. I can't imagine there were any changes made. And yeah, I really enjoyed it. So Marjorie and Me follows Kat, who works for a radio station, and they sort of do dating things on this radio. She works for this radio station, and then one day on her way home she pops into like her, I think it's her friend's store, like her favorite store in her town, which is like a thrift antique store called Whimsy and Woo. I love that name, don't you think it's cool? Yeah, she goes in there and she decides to pick up this urn because she thinks it's really pretty. However, what she doesn't really realize is that it does actually contain the ashes of the person who passed away, and it isn't really just a decorative thing. Someone literally donated a urn with ashes to this store, and so therefore she suddenly sees that she can see a ghost, and that is Marjorie. So it seems Kat kind of has a bit of a psychic ability, and she manages to see Marjorie, and clearly, like most ghosts, they have a reason or something that's holding them back, and a lot of the story is them trying to find out why Marjorie can't move on. However, there is also another plot, and I would say they're both kind of interlinked and as big as each other. There is another plot where Kat is trying to find love, and the radio decides to do this whole thing where they send her on dates. It is quite similar to First Time Caller by B.K. Potterson, if you have read that, in that sense. But overall, because the book has the other plot with Marjorie and the characters are just quite different, it does feel different, but it does have a very similar plot where, yeah, this girl works for the radio and they're trying to find her someone. Obviously, our main girl in First Time Caller doesn't work for the radio. She just ends up on their show. But yeah, it has similar vibes, I will say, but not enough where I was like, oh, this is just similar. And obviously it can't be a copy because they both come out this year. Like, there's no way that they copied each other. It's just a coincidence. And then a plot twist with these dates that Kat goes on, that the radio set her up on, is that Marjorie goes along with her and tries to give her advice. And yeah, they kind of, gain a friendship throughout the time, and things happen. They try to figure out why Marjorie can't move on. Obviously, I'm not going to say any more and give like the whole plot away, but yeah, I honestly, I really enjoyed it. So I gave it 4.5 stars. So the next book I read was another ARC, which is The Girl in the Green Dress by Mariah Fredrick. If you watched my most anticipated reads for the rest of the year video, this was actually in it, and I was lucky enough to be provided with the ARC. I want to say by the time you watch this, it's probably out, I think. It's definitely early September. So yeah, I think this is going to be out already. As you can see, I rated it 3.75 stars, so pretty solid. It wasn't my favorite read of the month, but I still really enjoyed it. And I just thought it had quite an interesting, intriguing plot. And yeah, let me tell you about it. So this book follows a guy called Maurice Markey. He's like I guess, a journalist, and he, wants to be a big writer. And he just happens to live opposite this guy who's very well known for dating women, wealthy guy, called Joseph Elwell. And he just happens to live opposite. And then one night he sees him enter his apartment with this girl in a green dress. However, the next morning, Joseph Elwell is found dead, and Morris manages to get his way into the apartment by lying to the housemaid that he is a doctor, and he manages to get in so he can investigate and write in the paper first, which is a little sneaky, let's face it. But it turns out that the house was locked, so they can't really figure out who killed this Joseph Elwell. So Maurice Markey decides to investigate this, and he's really, really set on finding this girl in the green dress because he seems to be the only person that really saw her enter his property that night. Well, anyway, Maurice Markey, when he is out and about, he meets the Fitzgeralds. Yes, the famous F. Scott Fitzgerald and his wife Zelda Fitzgerald. Now, this is based on a true story, but I think the involvement of the Fitzgeralds is fictional. It's based around a real murder, but the story overall is fictional. But anyway, he meets the Fitzgeralds, and Zelda gets really intrigued by this whole murder story, and she gets really invested too in finding this girl in the green dress, and she decides to help Maurice Markey. And then honestly, the story goes on from there. I don't want to give anything away. I don't want to give away if they find the girl in the green dress, whether it was her that did the murder. I don't want to give any of that away. So yeah, honestly, a very, very intriguing read. And like I said, a solid 3.75 for me. It was decent. The only reason I would say I didn't give it any higher was there were certain parts of the story I was really, really into it, and there was other bits I wouldn't go as far as to say bored, but I just wasn't as absorbed into it. But I enjoyed it as a read, for sure. And then the next book I read was an autobiography. So I don't read a lot of these, but I do like picking up the odd one. And this was voted in, I think, on my TBR thing and my vote that I put on Instagram to read Paris Hilton's The Memoir. I've given it 5 stars, mainly because I just don't think it's fair to just rate someone's life. So I tend to just automatically give 5 stars because they're being honest and they're telling their story, and I think you kind of have to respect that, So I will say Paris Hilton mentions having ADHD, and you can kind of tell in the book, she definitely jumps timelines quite a lot, but the story overall was just so interesting. The amount she has been through in her life, especially there's been a lot of things going around on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen them, where her parents are getting blamed for a lot of what happened to her as a child, but she kind of defends that a little bit in her book. She kind of says, that they didn't realize when she was saying how bad things were, they just kind of didn't believe her, which you could say is their fault, but when they think their kid's really troubled, who are they going to believe? The adults that say, oh, everything's fine here and it's a good place, or are they going to believe their kid who they think's kind of, gone a little bit astray? But long story short, she went through some horrific things, and if you want to know, I would pick up her biography. Yeah, there's a lot in there. I would like to have a little bit more about Nicole Richie and her friendship with her, but I must say I haven't read Paris's book from quite a long time ago, The Heiress, so maybe there's more in there. But yeah, overall, really, really interesting to read. I'm a 90s kid, so I very much grew up with A Simple Life, and yeah, Paris was everywhere, so it just made sense for me to read this, I think. And then the 5th book I read was Finlay, Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano, and I honestly wasn't sure what I was going to think of this, but I loved it. So this was actually a pick by one of my in-person book clubs. I'd not heard of it. I just bought it. I thought it sounded kind of interesting. I gathered it was a bit of a murder mystery type thing. And yeah, I didn't really know what to expect, but it was really good. So let me tell you a little bit about the plot. So our female protagonist, Finlay Donovan, she is a single mother, divorced, doesn't have a great relationship with the father of her children, and she's a struggling writer. She's struggling to pay the bills. She's getting the power cut off. And, to be fair on her ex-husband, he does try and help, but I guess he's just kind of lost his patience with giving her a lot of money and helping with all that. And her writing hasn't been doing so well. She's been in a bit of a she's kind of had writer's block. So basically, she meets up with her agent and she's discussing the plot for this whole new sort of murder novel. A woman overhears this conversation and assumes that Finlay Donovan is a contract killer. So obviously this is a bit of a miscommunication, but then it turns out she's offering Finlay a lot of money to kill off her husband. And, you know, obviously that gives Finlay things to consider because Finlay's not in a great place financially. Well, anyway, a lot happens in the plot. Basically, Finlay gets caught up in this whole kind of like real life murder investigation, real life sort of mob warfare, I guess you could say. So, yeah, I would call it a bit of a like thriller, murder, mystery thing. Yeah, honestly, it's just really good. And I feel like, you know, I'm not a mother, but I feel like a lot of moms could probably relate to Finley's stress in this, especially single moms, divorced moms. And yeah, I don't know, the way it was written just made me really care for Finlay Donovan and really want her to do well in life. So yeah, I just feel like the way it was written just really absorbed me. And I would say give this a go. Yeah, 5 stars for me. So next I picked up Abby Jimenez's Just for the Summer because I really wanted to finish that trilogy, as I mentioned last month. So this is the third part. You can read them as standalones. They just make like really subtle references back to the other characters, which are really nice. Like I just kind of like hearing their names and be like, oh, they're in that really briefly, you know, and it links. This one kind of links the most, I would say, actually. Especially to Part of Your World, but I'm not going to give too much away because otherwise I'd be giving the plot of this away, talking too much about how they connect. But this book is written from a dual perspective. We have Emma and we have Justin, who are obviously our love interests here. And what's funny about both of them is that both of them feel like they're cursed in love and have like the same curse. And it seems like anyone they date then goes on to like meet their soulmate next. Which is kind of weird. And they just feel like they're cursed forever and they're just never going to be able to find their own soulmates because they date someone like once or twice and they just go off to find someone forever, which is, yeah, kind of depressing, I guess. So, long story short, they obviously find this out, they get talking, and then they're like, what if we dated each other? Maybe it would break the curse because if they both date each other, in theory, they go on a few dates, the next person they each date will be there forever, right? So Emma is a traveling doctor, which basically means she just takes short like jobs at different hospitals and travels a lot. And her friend are actually due to go to Hawaii, but she gives up this opportunity just to date Justin to see if they can break this curse. So yeah, she ends up in Minnesota. They meet. They clearly get on very well and have a lot of chemistry, but there's also a lot more to the story. So yes, it's about their relationship, but there is also a lot about family dynamics. Emma has her mother turn up, who they have a bit of a troubled history. Obviously, I don't want to say too much and give everything away. But yeah, there's a lot to family dynamics, and yeah, I can't say much about that without giving too much away. I think I don't want to give any spoilers, but yeah, it's really great. And Justin has his hardships too. Yeah, he often has to take care of a lot of his younger siblings, and you'll find out why. I'm not going to say that, obviously. But yeah, so there's just a lot of layers, which I really like. And what I like about this is, yes, it's the fake dating trope, which I know a lot of people are like, oh, it's very overdone. But to me, this is a very different way of doing it because it's like they're dating thinking it's going to break their kind of fate with love and then obviously just fall for each other. So yes, it's fake dating, but it's not like, oh, will you date me to make me look this way to someone or look this way to someone else? It's like literally they were fake dating for themselves, which I think is a bit different, which I quite like. I gave this 5 stars because I feel like I love this as much as Part of Your World and a little bit more than yours truly, which I gave 4.5. So yeah, 5-star read for me. A really cute romance, but that has some depth in other ways, in my opinion. It's got some dark themes, actually. So do be aware of that, but I like it. And then next I picked up The Lost Bookshop by Evie Woods. I will say I was kind of saving this for the fall because I felt like, I don't know, the idea of a lost bookshop feels kind of cozy, but my other in-person book club chose this. So I read Finlay Donovan for the other one, and this one chose The Lost Bookshop. So it was kind of fate because I already had it. So I had no excuse. So I was like, I just have to join it. So yeah, and it was great actually because it was my first time meeting this particular book club in person because I can't always go when the meetings are, but I could this time and it was so lovely. We made bookmarks. It was great fun. So this book follows 2 timelines. So first off, we follow Opaline, who is like from the early 1900s, and we experience her trying to kind of escape an arranged marriage. And then we have the modern day, which we follow Martha, and she's actually gone to Dublin to kind of escape an abusive marriage, and she ends up working as a sort of like housemaid for this old lady in this massive house, which it turns out to be the suspected location of this lost bookshop where this guy Henry turns up looking for it. Therefore, we get a bit of a subplot with Henry and Martha, but ultimately, both plots link in the fact that it is about looking for a missing manuscript of Emily Bronte. So yeah, there isn't much more I can say about the plot without giving too much away, because as you can probably expect, there is links to the two timelines, through, I guess, searching for Emily Bronte's work, but there is more to it, and I don't want to give any spoilers, but I really, really enjoyed this. It reads a little bit more traditional, I guess, especially with Opaline's part, but I really like that. I liked jumping between the past and present, and yeah, it's kind of cozy. I mean, it does have some dark themes. Like I said, Martha's trying to escape an abusive marriage and things like that. But yeah, I don't know. I just really liked it. So I was quite surprised, like, because I wasn't sure what I was going to think of this one. But yeah, I gave it 4.5 because honestly, there were certain parts of it where I was just completely absorbed. I would quite happily have not put it down. So yeah, deserves that rating, I think. Okay, so then I moved on to One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig, which was chosen in my TBR video. And honestly, I was so excited to read this one because I absolutely loved The Night in the Moth when I read that this year, and I was eager to get into this, so I was glad that this got chosen on my little Instagram poll. So this book follows Elspeth, who is kind of infected by magic, which is a bad thing in this place. Like, it can kill you, people will kill you over it, because you degenerate, and as you become degenerate, you like can go crazy, different symptoms of being infected by this magic, but it's not a good thing. So we soon find Elspeth actually has something inside her, like another almost being called the Nightmare, and she kind of can use his magic. So it kind of makes her quite unique in the world, almost a little bit powerful, but she doesn't know when her degeneration is going to start. So that could happen at any moment. Anyway, Elspeth has an encounter with a highwayman, and after this encounter, she ends up agreeing to try and save Blunder, the town they're in, from this magical curse, I guess you could say. So it's almost like a curse that these people can get infected with this magical mist, and then, yeah, kind of lose their mind or whatever. So she agrees that she will try and help defeat this. So what I love about this book is the magic system. It's very, very unique, in my opinion, to anything I've ever read. So the idea is they have to get a certain amount of these cards, which are magic. If people possess these cards, they can use the magic, but it's not loyal to anyone. So if someone else takes it, it will work for them. And different cards do different things. And you have to gain a full collection to be able to defeat this kind of curse of magic. However, trying to get a full collection is really hard. There is one particular card which is really, really difficult to get, and there's only certain amounts of each one, which makes it very difficult. So yeah, without saying too much more, I just think that's an amazing concept, very different to anything I've ever read. So yeah, adored that whole idea and the whole system. So as you can see, I gave it 4.5 stars. I really, really loved it. The only reason it missed out on 5-star for me, well, 2 reasons, I would say, or even 3 reasons. First reason, I think I slightly preferred Night in the Moth. So if I'm comparing Rachel Gillig books to Rachel Gillig books, I slightly preferred Night in the Moth. Secondly, I would say this took me like a minute to get into. I did like it, and I didn't have to get too far in before I got into it, but it wasn't something that gripped me from the beginning. And then thirdly, it ends on the most horrendous cliffhanger. And I know a cliffhanger should be good, I know that, but I'm like, if I'd have read this when it first came out and the second part wasn't out, I would be like, what is happening? Because I don't think I have ever read a book that is like the first of a series or duology which has that much of a cliffhanger. Like maybe in a later series, like where it's quite a long series and somewhere in a middle book it will have a really big cliffhanger, but I have never experienced a cliffhanger in the first book of a series like this bad. And yes, because I can move straight on to the other one pretty much, I am not too upset about it, but I just know I would be if I didn't have the other one, and I think maybe that was it's a bold decision, but maybe too bold. Like, I feel like maybe they shouldn't have had quite such a cliffhanger there. I still love the book, and obviously I'm really excited to read the next one. So I would definitely recommend this if you like your fantasies. And I would say this is a bit on the darker side. Give this a go if you haven't, because I still think this is amazing. I rate it what I rate it because I did, but it is almost a 5-star for me, I think. Maybe I should have given it 4.75, but too late. I decided on 4.5 and I'm sticking with it. And then the final book I read, which is the 9th book. I always read 9 books. I thought I was going to get to 10 this month, but the last few days have been really busy and I just haven't been able to finish the book I'm on. So the last book, another one from my TBR, is 5 Survive by Holly Jackson. 5 Survive says 8 hours, 6 friends, 5 survive, as the kind of little like line to advertise the book. And I mean, it's pretty accurate. It's set right over that time frame. Like, the book is split into sections based on time, which I really like. I've not really read a book like that where it's set really in a tight time frame, so that made it really different, which I really enjoyed. So the basic plot is a load of friends decide to go away, I think it's for spring break, and their RV breaks down in the kind of middle of nowhere. And then they soon find out that someone's actually shot out their tires, and there's clearly someone out there waiting to kill them. They come to find out that they are being held there because one of them holds a secret that this person who has trapped them there wants to know, and they have to figure out who knows the secret and what it is and say it so that they can all get out of there alive. I can't say too much more about the plot because then I'd be giving a lot away, because obviously it's only an 8-hour time span, so really, yes, a lot happens, but not enough that I can talk about without giving things away. So I ended up really enjoying it. As you can see, I gave it a 3.75 because I genuinely did enjoy it. The main reason I couldn't give it any higher was, I would say it took me quite a while to get into. I think it was about halfway through that I started actually getting really gripped by it, and the end was so gripping. Like, the end was amazing. Like, the end, 5 stars, but I felt like it was kind of slow to get into. And my other complaint about it is that I didn't feel I got to know the characters enough, so I didn't care enough about their outcomes. So Red is our protagonist, who we like read in the perspective of, and so therefore I kind of cared for Red, but I feel like for the others I just didn't get a chance to know them enough because we're seeing them just in this moment over this 8 hours. Whereas I think if I had a bit more backstory and saw the friendship between each person and things like that, I think I'd care more. So while I did love the uniqueness of the timeline, I do think it kind of detracted from me caring about the characters, and I feel like because I didn't really care if they lived, it kind of, didn't make me as invested in the story as maybe I could have been. So yeah, literally just because it took me a while to get into, and because I would have liked to have a bit more of a connection to the characters, that's why I gave it 3.75, but still a solid read. 3.75, still good rating. I just think there could have been a bit more, but that end made it all worth it, I will tell you that. So if you like something suspenseful, the end is worth getting to because, yeah, it's good. So yeah, that is everything I read in August, and I hope you've enjoyed listening. Maybe you found something else that you would like to pick up and add to your own TBR. Let me know what your favourite read of the month was, because I love to hear what everyone else has been reading, and maybe I can find things to add to my own TBR. Not that it needs to get any bigger, but it always will. But anyway, thank you for watching, guys, and I will see you again real soon. Bye!